In today's Farm Report, 1 month after falling prices for some major food categories means we are paying less as a whole for our food at the supermarket. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
We are paying slightly less for our groceries as a whole. That's according to the latest USDA food price outlook that covers the month of April.
Overall, consumers are paying 0.1% less for groceries in April than we did in March.
USDA economist Anne-Marie Kuhn says that is due to declines in price in two major food categories, pork and fats and oils. First, for pork.
As pork prices continue to fall, they decreased 2.8% in April. We ended up adjusting our forecast downward, and we now expect pork prices to decrease between 0 and 1%. Previously, we had been calling for a 0 to 1% increase.
And as for fats and oils,
they continue to decline in price in 2015, and we now expect prices for these goods to change between negative 0.5% to possibly increasing 0.5%. And previously, our forecast predicted a 0 to 1% increase.
This counters a continued rise in beef and veal prices this year.
Prices just have remained high for these at the grocery store. We've seen the U.S. cattle inventory recover from historically low levels. We have started to see some herd expansion. It just takes a while for the production process for beef and veal. It's generally about 16 to 18 months till that meat is ready for market, even after they start expanding.
This led to an adjustment in the latest food price outlook for beef and veal prices, going up between 5.5% to 6.5% over the previous year, a 0.5% increase from the previous month. It was still not enough to cause a rise in overall food prices in April. In fact, this is the second consecutive month of declines in overall grocery store prices. Anne-Marie Kuhn says that is due in part to a couple of factors.
The largest factors currently placing some downward pressure on inflation are both the strength of the U.S. dollar and then also some farm-level prices that have been lower due to really great production years.
That means imported food items are less expensive, while farm-level prices for grains and oilseeds like soybeans are down.
We've seen the strength of the U.S. dollar. It makes all the goods we import relatively less expensive. And then we've seen farm-level prices for wheat and oilseeds. They've fallen year over year, and that's placed downward pressure on prices for both fats and oils and cereal and bakery products. Both of these categories fell 0.2% month over month in April.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. Both houses of Congress are considering legislation to improve efforts to fight wildfires at a time when the fire threat out west this summer is expected to be high. Just a month after a Senate committee heard testimony on the subject, a House subcommittee Wednesday held their hearing on a proposed bill. Among those on the panel testifying was U.S. Forest Service Chief Tom Tidwell. He advocates creation of a funding source to pay for catastrophic wildfires, much like a disaster fund. It's designed to halt the current practice of borrowing from other funds to cover costs to battle catastrophic wildfires.
That will address the cost of fire suppression, stop that disruptive practice of having to transfer funds and shut down work in August and September on many of our years. But more importantly, it'll also stop the erosion of the Forest Service's capacity to be proactive and get work accomplished, and it will provide the opportunity to increase restoration and increase timber harvest.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Ground is now broken on the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility designed to protect our nation's agriculture and food supply. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture reports.
A project that has been years in the making and that is making progress towards completion celebrated a milestone in late May, the groundbreaking ceremony of the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility.
Upon completion of the NBAF, our nation will now have the first Bio Level 4 lab facility of its kind, a state-of-the-art biocontainment facility for the study of foreign animal and emerging diseases.
The Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, joined a group of speakers at the ceremony in Manhattan, Kansas, where NBAF will be located. Also talking about NBAF and its significance was Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack.
This is going to be a world-class facility with world-class researchers confronting world-class problems and threats and resulting in world-class solutions. Its impact will be profound.
The location of NBAF is the center of what is known as the nation's Animal Health Corridor. Important, according to Homeland Security Undersecretary Reggie Brothers.
Indeed, NBAF's location here in the Animal Health Corridor provides proximity to a powerhouse of research capabilities and scientists in industry and academia.
And that includes resources from the governmental, private industry, and higher education sectors. And as U.S. Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas notes, NBAF will provide an added layer of consumer confidence.
This is an opportunity for us to convince consumers to know that their food is safe and secure, that today the consumer is king when it comes to agriculture, and what our farmers and ranchers produce has to be something that consumers have faith in and are willing to purchase. And this facility helps assure that our food supply is secure.
Primary construction will continue for the next 5 years, with NBAF scheduled to be fully operational by the year 2023. As Homeland Security Undersecretary Reggie Brothers adds,
The NBAF will replace the Plum Island Animal Disease Center in New York, which has served our nation as the primary facility for conducting this research.
Homeland Security Secretary Johnson concludes,
In all, the NBAF is another critical part of our comprehensive efforts to secure the homeland.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Paul Combs is a Missouri farmer, a bank director, and owns farm implement dealerships as well. And in all those capacities,
I've seen the farm sector go from one of the bright spots in the economy less than 2 years ago to now limping along.
Combs told a House panel this week that one barometer of that is sales of farm equipment.
Our sales are down about 15% year over year through April.
But he said the big concern is the rest of this year.
In the first quarter of 2016 could be rough.
The major equipment manufacturers are forecasting maybe a 25% sales drop for new equipment, but also used equipment is a problem as well.
When you have lowering commodity prices, usually the equipment values follow along, and so you're in a situation where you've got equipment values that are falling, and you need to be selling it to people who may be being told by their bankers not to buy it. So it's kind of a catch-22. The equipment will get worked through the system, but there's an excess, particularly of used equipment, sitting out there.
And it may sit there until commodity prices and farm incomes start to rise again. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.